And we go live on radio in 5, 4, 3.
And we are back, folks, here on the Michigan Insider on the Big 1050 WTKA, online at the Big1050.com. Juices are flowing. Cannot wait. Big game on the horizon. The Wolverines heading down to Norman, Oklahoma, number 14 versus number 18, playing under the lights. Bryce Underwood, John Mateer is going to go down. Cannot wait. The MGoBlog Roundtable crew is with us, and we are going to break this game down in detail with the fellas, starting off first with the man that started it all over at the blog, Brian Cook. BC, how are you this morning?
I've been going over Bryce Underwood tape, so I'm pretty good.
Yeah, man, it looked pretty good, didn't it? Seth Fisher, how are you this morning?
I have been going over New Mexico offense, so I'm done. I am done with college crap. Show me some actual football, man. I'm so excited to see somebody run some offense. Man, they were 88 freaking plays they ran. 88 plays, and I think 20 of them were some sort of thing that you could call sustainable offense.
And Greg Ross, how are you this morning?
I'm doing good. Wax mustache forever.
Yeah, your disciples are already out in force in the chat, by the way. Which is, if you're on social media, Craig, you start out with, I'm serious, 10,000 followers day one. I'm convinced.
I'm not. I stay away from social media.
All right. So let's go quick through the New Mexico observation so we can get into Oklahoma. Starting with you, Brian, as you go back and you look at your takeaways, starting with Bryce, of course, just your biggest impressions from watching Michigan, New Mexico.
I mean, it starts with Bryce Underwood, right? That is the most physically talented quarterback I've ever seen at Michigan. Flat out. The only person who's probably in the ballpark is JJ, and JJ is a guy who, when he was, in his final year at Michigan, they're finally rolling him out opposite his throwing arm, and he's throwing darts 20 yards downfield. Game one, Bryce Underwood is doing the same thing. He's not getting set. His feet aren't under him. He's not that square, and he's still firing darts on a snag route 10 yards downfield. The amount of arm talent he has is insane. And the only person I can compare it to is John Elway. That's him. The ball is out so fast and it's so accurate. The number of throws where he just put it on the guy's face mask is insane. There were a couple throws that were behind. There were a couple throws that were bad ideas. He's going to have some issues playing Brent Venables on Saturday, but that is the most physically talented quarterback in the history of Michigan football, flat out. And the things that he's able to do as a true freshman who just turned 18 are a little silly. That post route on the 2-minute drill before halftime that set it up. He's moving the zone guys with his eyes. And that's something that JJ did early in his career. And I think that was a really good indicator for him. And so he's staring right down the middle of the field where he has no receivers, and he pulls the safety over, and that's the window that he gets it to Goodwin. And I didn't see this preseason. I saw him in the spring game. I looked at a bunch of his tape, and I honestly did not see the most talented quarterback in the history of Michigan football. But it took one game of live fire snaps to be like, oh, this guy is different. And sometimes being in the stands is actually important, and I think it's important to understand this, because sometimes those throws are right in front of your face, and you're like, I've been doing this my whole life. I've been going to Michigan games in the same seats for my whole life, and I've never seen that. So, whatever your ceiling is for Bryce Underwood, there is no ceiling for Bryce Underwood. Now, will he get there, et cetera, et cetera? Nobody knows that. But on a pure talent basis, he's number one.
Seth Fisher.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Seth Fisher.
Yeah, man. I was a little higher than Brian on Bryce going in, because I watched a whole lot of the high school tape, and I think even his junior year might have been better than his senior year, just because they were running him so much. And that's the thing; they didn't even touch his legs in this game, right? So, I think there was one fourth down where they were having him run, and Nathan Afobe misses his block. But it was it wasn't even the full suite of things that we thought we were going to see. We thought we were going to they were going to do the Terrell Pryor thing. That's what we were saying, right? That they're just going to roll him out, give him some easy reads, kind of let the run game run the show. And first game, this guy turned 18 last week, and his first game out there, his OC is letting him go out and run the offense. Like, he was the engine of this offense. And the other things that sometimes worked because they're worried about Bryce Underwood. And I'm just thinking Venables, like, he was game planning, I think, for a true freshman, which any sane person probably has been doing. And now he's got to kind of look at this tape and be like, man, this guy, it was his headiness, right? He looks more like a true sophomore than a true freshman. And there were some moments there where it's just like, okay, there's somebody else there, or you could set your feet there. If you're more comfortable, like there's plenty, you can pick things out of there if you want to and say, like, this is, he's got some room to grow. Of course he does. But I was a little bit with Brian in that, like, I thought some of the rankings and I thought some of the hype for him was the fact that he was so young and just so physically talented that if he got to the end of 3 years at Michigan, he would still be the same prospect, even if he wasn't really a great college player. Just because he was so young, because he got that talent, because he's got that, personality makeup and everything, and all those things are reasons why scouts at the industry, and you're part of the industry too, but why the rankers would have him number 1 overall, because they're trying to hit that NFL, right? They try to hit that draft ranking. And he was obviously a draft pick, even if he wasn't a great college player. The fact that he was this good and this trusted and this polished as a true freshman in this first game takes the ceiling off for what he can be as a college player. And that is, I think Oklahoma's got to relook at what their strategy was, and I think we've got to look at what the possibilities are for this season. Craig Ross.
Brian was a little bit sanguine about Bryce Underwood, a little bit, and I think that was reasonable. I didn't know quite what to think, but he certainly exceeded any expectations that I had. The thing that, aside from his physical abilities, that impressed me was, A, he was calm, B, he was poised, but most of all, he was having fun. I saw him laughing and smiling, and I mean, he was just enjoying himself. And for a kid to come out with that pressure, in front of 110,000 people, especially for a person with that level of expectation, to be out there having fun, that perhaps impressed me as much as anything. I will be surprised in 3 years that he isn't the first player picked in the NFL draft. I would be almost stunned at this point if that isn't the case. He has a lot of room to grow. I think that's right. But he was 21 for 31. I mean, I don't know how many drops you guys counted. 4 at least. I would say more like 6, in my opinion. I felt the ball to Marlon Klein over the middle should have been caught by Klein. So he didn't really make, one or in my mind, there were 1 or 2 really bad throws, and that was about it. There's not much more you can say than, and he wasn't running. I mean, I've seen him run. I mean, he can obviously run, and there was zero evidence.
Yeah, he didn't use the crutch.
So one of the things that I clipped was just like a 10-yard stop route to McCulley, because
I remember
he took McCulley off his feet, and I was like, oh, this is normal quarterbacking. I see this all the time. Like, this is a CA. It's a catchable ball. It's a plus in our grading. It's like, okay, he did the thing. They converted the sticks, and I clipped it because it was a bad throw. Because I was like, this is not what's happening. This is not what's happening with Bryce Underwood. Because the thing about Underwood in this game is that most of his throws were at the face mask of the receiver, and not just at the face mask, but a little bit in front of it, so that they can catch and run without breaking stride. Like, how many yards after the catch were there in this game? There were a ton.
Yeah.
Because every single thing he threw, with some limited exceptions, yes, was so on point that it wasn't just accurate, it was literally inch perfect. So I'm expecting that he's going to have some issues. but just the baseline he's working from, not just in terms of his like ability to throw the ball hard, but his ability to loft the ball, his ability to read defenses, and the uncanny, eerie accuracy he has is I didn't see that in the spring game, right? Like he was zinging screens over the heads of his receivers. He was, throwing deep balls that were nowhere near, and that didn't pop to me like it did against New Mexico. So there's still a couple of things he's got to prove. He's got to prove he can do it against better competition. He's got to prove that he can do it on the road. He's got to prove that he can throw a deep ball, which we didn't really see in this game. And then the kind of the big kind of flashing stop sign that I want to put up is that the game plan was based around the fact that the offensive line can't really block.
Yeah.
Like pass block.
Yeah, so a couple things. So they said the things that they said translated to game one. They said that he had improved tremendously from spring to fall camp. That showed up. They said in fall camp that they worked a plan that incorporated a lot of Chip's philosophy into what they do. So it would give them nuance, that they could employ some spread principles, that they could employ some tempo, that they could employ some RPO, that they could give Bryce some familiarity that would induce comfort. And so that to me was a big part of Saturday. Bryce is he's so confident that my thing was, can you calm him down? Can you make it be so everything is not a fastball where he's not drilling every receiver, because he's not going to be overwhelmed, because he's just built different. Could you get him to dial it down? And I think Chip did an amazing job of making him comfortable. When he comes out, spread him out, give him a bubble, and they were off to the races, like literally from there, with the comfort for Bryce, and the rest was history in that game.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the things that Lindsey was doing are things that I've been wanting Michigan's offense to do for years. So something like 42% of Bryce's passes were play action, and like there was that point then a couple years ago where literally every pistol thing was a run, and then they ran a pass against Penn State or something, and it wasn't even play action. And I was like, what are we even doing here? And it feels like that's not what Chip wants to do. So I feel like there's kind of two general philosophies of making your play calls on offense. One is you want to save up the counter punch for when it's really relevant. And this was kind of like a Borges thing. It was like a Lloyd Carr thing, where like you run the same thing over and over, and then like you break tendency at important moments to make big plays. And the other philosophy is we're just going to break tendency as soon as we can. And so as soon as we feel like someone's coming up on us, it doesn't matter if it's New Mexico, it doesn't matter who it is, we're going to hit them. And we saw that with the Marsh throw, where that was like the third bubble they'd thrown, maybe the fourth in the game. And so they fake it to Samaj, and then they get a great hole shot from Bryce, and Marsh forgets that it's an eligible receiver. I don't care about that part. He's a true freshman. He's going to get better. That's fine. What I love is like the process, the play call, and like as you go into this game tape, you get a feel for Chip Lindsey's sequencing of plays, and I really like it. It didn't work every time. There were a couple things on the goal line where it's like, okay, we just hit him with duo. We're going to hit him with a counter to duo, and UNM was able to anticipate that. But overall, like I thought the structure of the offense was really good. You had, some Malzahn stuff kind of incorporated, but it was still obviously a Michigan offense. Like I thought, I was very encouraged by what I saw from Chip Lindsey in week one.
Yeah, some of the things we saw I thought were interesting. I did my next Sharpies on the little nickel, or the little tight end package, right? Which is a thing that Michigan downloaded from the Ravens in 2021, and it's kind of been part of our offense, where they use a receiver as a tight end, right? And it's been something that's kind of annoyed us as we've gone through the years. We watch this thing, because a lot of times you just end up with Roman Wilson blocking a guy he has no business blocking. And especially on like their short yardage. And it was interesting to see Chip kind of take just this thing that's very much part of the Michigan offense, right? That's part of our package, and tweak it a little, add some things to it to make sure that they saw the play action on it first before you went and ran it. And there was, one time the run part didn't work, but the play action part worked because they saw the run and they were expecting it so much. And you could see that everything is packaged. There's nothing in the offense that doesn't have something to keep you from overreacting to it. And it's, we've seen, Brian said there's two theories of offense. There's a third theory, which is just, throw a grab bag out there. Just throw a whole bunch of things at them. And I think we were trending that way under Sharon. It was one of my concerns with Sharon's coordinating is that sometimes it just felt like a grab bag. It was just like, we do this, we do this, we do this. We didn't really have things that worked off of each other that could be sustainable. And I like that Chip is putting things in that make things that we were already doing, that we like to hang our hat on, that we like to define Michigan, and making it work again because you can't overreact to it anymore.
I'm interested in the offensive line. I mean, I thought, Brian, you can tell me if I'm wrong. I thought El Hadi was okay. After that, maybe Link was all right. I thought center and right guard were problematic. Sprague got a bad holding call, or a call that I don't think was holding, but that's another thing. That was weak. Yeah. And, but what did you think overall of the offensive line? I was not, super happy because I assume New Mexico is probably a major step down from, say, Oklahoma, who has a good defensive front.
Well, the thing about playing in New Mexico is that they know that they're physically outmatched. So what they do almost all the time is they slant and they stunt, and they're not going to play you straight up. So it's more of a mental test than a physical test in a lot of ways. And what I saw from Michigan is, you're playing week one, you're playing against an opponent that's never going to show you what they're actually going to run. And there were some issues there. I thought physically that El Hadi and actually Crippen, I thought was great in this game because he's not getting overwhelmed physically by guys, and he's agile, he's intelligent, and I thought that he did a pretty good job. And then, the tackles I thought were solid on the ground, and then the pass protection is not quite an incomplete, but it's fairly close to one because the amount of pure drop back passes Michigan ran was very low. And I think that's probably an indicator that they don't trust their pass protection. But the thing with Bryce Underwood is you saw him on the move, right? You saw him rifling darts many yards downfield on the move in a way that most quarterbacks can't do that. Like once you go off platform for most quarterbacks, you're shutting down 10 yards and out. You're shutting down longer intermediate throws because most quarterbacks just don't have the arm to do that. With Underwood, he can do anything. It doesn't matter if he's even facing downfield. He could probably throw it back over his head and he'd throw a rocket. So I think that it is going to feel a little bit like 23, right? Where JJ was a very capable quarterback outside the pocket and on the run. And Michigan had some questions at tackle and pass protection. And so against better teams, they took stuff off JJ's plate and they put him on the move a lot. And I think that's probably going to be the case. Now, I do think that the things that we saw from Link last year have been mitigated. So the one thing you have to realize is that they got a transfer from Idaho. I know that's FCS, but this is a guy who graded out as a 90 last year on Pro Football Focus. He may have like some NFL late round potential.
James Newby.
Yeah, he's a player. And like the times that he went up against Link, it wasn't a blowout. Now, I'm not saying that Link didn't get got a couple of times because he did, but I think that's a good player. I think that's an FBS level player. And I think that he, it was a stalemate-ish. And he's going to go up against better players at some point later in the season, possibly this week against Oklahoma. I do think that he made a step forward. Like, I don't think that last year's Evan Link is this year's Evan Link.
Yeah, I think your observation about what they did with Bryce on the move and what they did with the offense on the move. So Bryce on the move and then pocket movement, I thought I think it was part, hey, let's look at the deficiencies we have with the line, but let's also look at the strengths that we have with Bryce, because Bryce is outstanding throwing on the move, like throwing to extreme, throwing across his body, pulling it down if he has to tuck it and run, which we didn't see, but on the road in Oklahoma, that is absolutely, you say, look, if you get confused, all those fails, young fella, just run until you can't run anymore. That is going to be an option. But I think that for Chip, this idea that, hey, let's make sure that in case we got to break the glass, in case we get in this situation, to your point, Brian, where our line is an issue, we aren't stuck where we're like, oh my God, we can't throw. We're going to be able to move the pocket. We're going to be the naked package that they're working. We're going to be able to do some things with that. We got options that we can go to in the event that this line isn't up to snuff and we can't just drop back and throw the football. So that was really encouraging to see as well, to you guys' point, that they're working packages. They're working things to make sure they have things in their toolkit. I want to get some defense in before we get to the break. So what did you guys think of the Michigan defense?
Man, I think that people are overreacting if they're not excited about how the defense performed. They were fine. They really did not run a whole lot of real offense, right? Like there were only a few drop back passes. Everything else was a little dinky dunky, and screens and tight end screens. And all they were doing was spreading things out. And as soon as Michigan downloaded what they were doing, if they chose to, they would blow it up. There was like one screen, tight end screen, they kept on running, and Michigan was trying to practice their 3-back sets and just kind of like let's get some practice in. And finally, Rolder is in at this point. Rolder's just like, nah, screw it. I'm just going to blow this thing up. And he just wrecks the receiver. And then they try to run the same thing again from a different look, and he just spots it out and does the same exact thing. It was one of those games where, if you wanted to concentrate on what they were doing and just beat their college crap, you could. And one time, Wink is like, fine, I'm just going to run a scrape exchange on this. And it killed their entire, quote, zone read game. It was just like, you didn't have to do very much to just shut it off. And the things that I felt were a little bit disappointing was the defensive tackles. Trey Williams did not start. When he played, he didn't really do much. But I think that I'm coming down from watching and grading, Grant and Graham, where if they run a zone, those guys are gonna, I'm just so used to that, just dying. And then you kind of go back and see why it died. And then when all of a sudden they get 2 yards on 3rd and 2, and like, what happened? Well, they had it blocked up, and the guy falls forward. Like, it's just 2 yards. And I have to train my brain again to be not be disappointed that it wasn't a TFL, because Trey Williams is not Mason Graham.
Are they going to have to give more time to Payne? Because I thought Payne was pretty good.
It's really hard to tell against these guys.
Okay.
So Payne was a souped up version of exactly who we thought he is, who was very strong, fantastic technique. And I think that his whole thing was, when he was a 5-star coming out of Belleville, he was, one of the most developed prospects in the history of defensive tackles. He was the defensive tackle who can already play. And he did. He played a lot at Alabama, but he was a run stopper. And then when you put him in at goal line, he did exactly what, we thought he was going to do. And then his pass rush was just taking that guard and shoving him all the way into the quarterback's face until the quarterback literally is throwing a pass off his guard's helmet. And that was what Payne is. So is that going to work against a bigger guard? Don't know yet. I think that is a very opponent variant kind of performance, and that's something we're going to have to look at again. Edo was another guy who graded out pretty well to me, and for the same reasons. But this was more kind of his game, where they ran a lot of multi-tight end sets, and this was New Mexico's plan. They were going to put a bunch of tight ends out and then spread them out a little bit and have Michigan's 5-2 try to deal with a spread formation. And that made it hard on TJ Guy and Ernest Hausman, who had to cover a lot more space, but it made life easier on Etta, who got to kind of just tee off a little bit. I am interested to see what happens against Oklahoma because their offensive line has a lot of injuries. They don't know if one of their guards is going to play, so you might get another true freshman guard. We might get to see that again. But I was hoping to see that from all the tackles, and I saw it from 2 of the tackles, and that was a little concerning.
What about Nate Marshall? It seemed, I mean, he had some snaps and he's fast.
Dude.
I mean, he was tough to block.
I'm trying not to take anything seriously that happens against a 6'1" left tackle.
Okay.
Right, like that guy was in tough, and the only thing he could do was really hold people, and those are the holds that I didn't care about. I'm like, yeah, let that guy. He's otherwise, the quarterback's already getting lit up.
Mhm.
But Marshall, he's so athletic and he's so wide. He's big, right? He's almost got the frame of a defensive tackle, but he moves like a weak side end, like Jabo. So he takes one step to the right, and that step goes pretty far just because he's so big, right? So he's got that big leg, and then he hops left. And then this is where you see like that basketball athleticism. His mom was a pro basketball player. His dad was a pro basketball player. His grandpa was a pro basketball player. And you see that athleticism in him where he just, that's very hard for a tackle to deal with when somebody can get from left to right so quickly if you're in one-on-one with him. So they're going to have to, when he's in there, he's going to be a pass rush threat. I don't know about the other things, but he did fix something. So Trey Williams overrushes and ends up outside when his lane was not outside. And Marshall saw it and fixed it. He came inside. So they were about to have a breakout. They were about to have a scramble there. And Marshall fixed it. Now, he was able to fix it against a right tackle for New Mexico. I don't know if that's going to work against somebody who he doesn't have like 4 inches versus him on his arm length. But that was impressive just from a true freshman out there for his first game, and he sees what's happening in front of him and makes a heady play. So I think he's going to be part of the rotation this year. I think he gives them something that the other defensive ends don't really have, which is that pass rush threat. I don't know if you can drop him to coverage yet. You can't give him the whole thing, but man, he's going to be good.
So corner depth is my concern. You didn't see in this game Shamari Earls. You didn't see Caleb Anderson. That in this game, availability of those two and corner depth just in general is where, if heading into the season, even I was looking, what did you think of corner play in this game?
When he didn't make his 2 big mistakes, Jair Hill was great. Everyone's watching Jair and being like, okay, when's it going to click for that guy? These are not the receivers that you're really going to tell against. It was the corners didn't really. I mean, Zeke Berry was just they didn't really throw at Zeke that much. The one time they did, he got a PBU. But like they were pretty vanilla. Michigan did a lot of cover 2 in this game, which is what they do when they don't really respect you. They're just going to drop back. But Jair, he had 2 big mistakes, both on that on the ref drive, and that he has a PI that he just does not mean to make. Right, it's just a comeback route in the end zone. There's not a lot of other options. He's got leverage, and he gives it up, and then he commits a very obvious pass interference that they're going to call, right? And then he gives up leverage on the tight end on the touchdown pass, and that's why that guy's running free. And all he did was like he thought he was guessing. He thought that they were going to try to beat him outside. He thought it was going to be a fade to the right. So he jumped over there to try to take away that, thinking he could get back, and you can't. Once you move your feet and move your whole chest out of the way of the guy, it's just he gets a free release. And he was guessing. Now, if he's guessing, that's probably better than last year where he was just like not even guessing, right? He was just reacting. So guessing is better. Now at least there's the mind's working, right? And this was always the story with Jair. It's going to take a while. He's got to get that feel. He's got to get, he's not Will Johnson, who's been doing this and just been having these games against wide receivers since he was 12 years old. He's someone who's got to have to learn all this stuff. So that was a learning moment, and I'm glad it happened against New Mexico. It was frustrating because like the play call should have had that dead. They had him dead to rights. All he had to do was have the cornerback stand in his way, and they're done. But yeah, man. And then the young cornerback Shamari, I don't know what happened. He flipped, and then hurt himself or something, and it was in the.
I saw this happen in front of my face. As like he did a flip before the game and he didn't land it right, and then he did another one, and then he kind of seemed to have tweaked his ankle. So a little Martin Grammatica of him, but I'm sure he'll be fine sooner or later.
Yeah. Hopefully that's not doesn't hinder him.
Yeah.
Martin Grammatica.
Yeah. Hopefully that doesn't hinder him this week. So
but we got to see Jaden Sanders because of that, and he kind of looks viable. I mean, true freshman throwing him out there the first time, and his whole thing was he's an athlete, but like if that guy is already on the field now, over Caleb Anderson, I don't know if he's hurt, but
he didn't play.
Yeah. And Jeremiah Lowe, is he hurt or is he just not?
I just don't think
he's got passed.
He just got passed. Elijah Dotson too.
Yeah, Dotson looked way more comfortable at nickel than he did at corner. They had him play more at corner than nickel, but they were having him do both. And when he was at nickel, he knew the play. He went and shot. I mean, they were running the same screen again. So maybe at that point, Michigan was like, okay, when they roll that tight end out there, just kill them. They're not going to do anything to you downfield. But at cornerback, he has position. He's running with his receiver, and then he flips out and he holds. And the pass was out of bounds, so people were mad that it was uncatchable, but it was still a hold. So
I mean, that one, I didn't think that was that's one of those things where the receiver and the quarterback are doing the same thing to each other. So if you call one, you got to call the other. That's hand fighting, and I didn't think that was bad defensive back play personally.
Yeah, I mean, if you have if you have a fistful of shoulder jersey and the ball's in the air, that just makes such an easy call for them. But I mean, I'm bringing that up because Josiah Edmond got hit with a terrible penalty. And by the way, those offsides, the thing that Lane was doing is illegal. They should have been calling false starts on that. So when you clap and put your hands out like that, that's a false start. It's specifically talked about in the rule book. That specific move is a no-no. So that was why Michigan was getting offsides, because they were committing false starts and they were jumping at it. So on one of those, so they get two guys to jump on that. And then they also get a penalty on Josiah Edmond, which, number one, it's out of bounds. Number two, he did nothing. The receiver was initiating all the contact, and Edmond was just staying on him. And then when the ball gets in the air, he goes after the ball. And the only reason he's contacting the receiver is because the ball is so far out of bounds that he's got to go over the receiver to kind of hit it. That was a terrible penalty. And it made me believe more in Josiah Edmond than, because it was hard not to interfere, and he didn't. And the fact he got flagged for it anyway made me mad, because he played that exactly how you want to play it.
All right, so let's get to a break so we can get some Oklahoma in. We'll get to a break now, come back on the other side. We'll talk Sooners and get the tail of the tape in this contest, number 14 versus number 18. We come back on the other side. MGoBlog Roundtable here on the Michigan Insider on the Big 1050 WTKA, online at thebig1050.com.
Clear on the radio.
One thing that Vance said this morning that is in the back of my head is that essentially the Big Ten is going to mess with Michigan this year, or the NCAA. I mean, he was pretty upfront about his, on his concern about
he hated the targeting call. Yeah,
because it was a terrible call, and that one wasn't called on the field. On the field, they were just trying to see if it was a fumble or not. And then the next thing you know, the guy's out of Barham's out of the game for a targeting call. I don't know what he can do. I don't know what Barham can do. He doesn't drop his head. To me, it looks like perfect football technique. It was what I was taught in 9th grade. How to, you wrap the guy up, you keep your head up. I
saw turn his head, and it's a shorter guy who's falling. What the hell can you do? I don't know what you can do. It's impossible.
Yeah. What makes me mad about that is that 100% of the intent was on the people calling it, not on the player, right? The Jay-Sean did everything he could not to have a helmet-to-helmet contact, but that's where you're coming in, right? What do you want him to do at that point? So you know, they the only way to call that is if you really want to call it. Now, I'm not saying this is like conspiracy kind of thing. I'm saying if you're a
No, I
replay
mean, but
official and you look at
uh,
something and you want to make a call.
No,
all
Vance
right,
said it's a
you got to
conspiracy.
come. I mean, you got to come a little harder than they screwed up a targeting call because they've been doing that for 20 years.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's like, I mean, I saw that and I think that's an egregious call, but I thought that the suspension was going to be upheld because there is a little bit of the rule book that you can like point at and be like, okay, this is
Yeah.
justification for targeting, and but there's no safer way for Barham to tackle the guy than what he
Right.
did, and I
Agreed.
think what we'll get is we'll get some sort of rule clarification or interpretation that we can be like, that was a bad call, but he's going to be out for the first half.
Well, I mean, if it was just that call, but I mean, there were 0 discretionary calls against New Mexico in the game. 0. And there's a ridiculous face mask on one of their offensive linemen at one point in the game where he grabs,
Where?
I don't it's in the first half. He grabs the left tackle, I think. Whoever grabs the face mask, keeps his hand on it the whole way, and then yanks it. And then finally lets go. The rep is standing right there, nothing. I mean,
I didn't even see that. I charted the
that's
game.
a
I didn't see that
call.
one.
Well, it's there, and that's
Okay.
a call that they never miss. I mean, face masks. I mean that's you
There were
usually,
other calls. There were other calls that they never missed.
Yeah.
I mean, there
Yeah.
was like one guy who's like Jason Barham beats a guard and the
Back
guard
in
has
about
nothing to
15
do.
seconds, guys.
He reaches
Yeah.
back and just has both shoulder pads and wrenches him backwards. And there were a lot of times that Michigan's players were kind of going up and nicely talking to the official, being like, "How do you guys not miss that?" Because they're
All right,
all
guys, I'm
pointing
coming back. Stand by.
They're all
Back
pointing
in
at first, yeah.
5, 4, 3.
And we are back, folks, here on the Michigan Insider on the Big 1050 WTKA, online at the Big1050.com. Sam Webb, Mr. Ira Weintraub on the other side. We have the MGoBlog Roundtable crew with us. Before we get back to the Roundtable crew, want to tell you folks out there that Brighton Ford is your go-to destination for a new Ford. Step into the driver's seat of your dream car or truck, take it for a spin, feel the power, and drive it home today. At Brighton Ford, you'll experience the difference. Got a current Ford lease? Transfer it to Brighton Ford. They'll pick up your lease, deliver your new one right to your doorstep. It's that easy. No one provides service like Brighton Ford. Expect premium service before, during, and after the sale. Brighton Ford, the official Ford sponsor of the Big 1050 WTKA. Call 1-800-NEW-FORD. Get on board with Brighton Ford. All right, fellas, it is time to talk Michigan, Oklahoma. Mr. Cook, John Mateer, Riverboat Gambler, Gunslinger, Heisman contender. What do you think of this matchup as Michigan goes down to Norman? And then on defense, they say they have arguably the #1 defensive line in the country. Kind of handicap this game for me from your perspective.
Well, offensively, their offensive line is in a state of flux. So their version of Andrew Babalola missed the first game. He may return this game. They only had one guy play all the snaps at the same position against Illinois State. That was a right tackle who's not good. They only picked up 3.2 yards per attempt against Illinois State on the ground. So I think Mateer is going to be forced to make a lot out of not very much, because I think he's going to be in second long a lot. I think he's going to be third and long a lot. Now he's, as you say, like he's Drew Tate. He's Tate Forcier. He should have Tate somewhere in his name because he is that kind of guy. He's an off-platform thrower. He's a guy who's very good when he's outside the pocket. He's a playmaker. Now he's wild. He misses. His mechanics are kind of iffy. He misses a lot of throws. He makes bad decisions sometimes. So he's going to give a lot to Oklahoma, but I think there will be opportunities for Michigan to take some back, especially if Wink is able to kind of throw some confusing coverages in there. So for me, I think more than Bryce Underwood, I think John Mateer is going to determine how this game goes, because they're not going to be able to run the ball, like flat out. Like they're going to maybe make some changes on the offensive line, but those aren't going to be great. And they were making mistakes on pretty basic run plays against an FCS opponent. So it's going to be on his shoulders. And with Michigan, yeah, they got an offensive line, they got a defensive line that's going to be good that they're going up against. But I think that in terms of the run blocking, Michigan will have a clear advantage because these defensive lines are going to be similar. And Michigan's offensive line isn't great, but when in terms of like them on the ground, I'm like, okay, we got something to work with here. So the main concern I have from a Michigan perspective is the fact that it's on the road. It's at night. It's going to be a snake pit, and it's Bryce Underwood's first road game. So there's a real pumpkin situation that could be popping up here. Now, if there's a guy who can go into Norman in game 2 when he's 18 years old and just not care, it's Bryce Underwood. But, he's probably human. I can't tell you that he is yet, but he probably is. And so we're going to have some like moments where it's just like, oh yeah, you're a freshman. So, and especially with Brent Venables calling the defenses. And, I feel like the spread here is a little too far slanted to Oklahoma because, games are won and lost in the trenches. And I think Michigan has a major advantage there just because their offensive line is in such shambles.
Yeah, I got some clarifications. I was talking to I did a podcast with Sooners blog last night that will be out today. I'll share on social media. But so the left tackle you're talking about, Michael Fasusi, was held out just precautionarily. He had kind of like a little buzzing in his head or something like that. So it's not a physical deal, and there was no reason they were playing an FCS team. There was no reason to play him. Same thing with Derek Simmons, who had a concussion 3 weeks ago, and it was just like no reason to kind of risk it when you can just go one more week. So both their right tackle and their left tackle should be back in. Their other left tackle, Jacob Sexton, is probably out, so they're going to go with the true freshman. But the left guard, Heath Azeda, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, he's probably going to be out, or if he is in, he might be a little bit limited, which means they're going to play a true freshman. They're going to move the returning starter who was playing right guard to left guard and play a true freshman at right guard, just so they don't have two true freshmen next to each other. So that's an offensive line with two true freshmen versus a defensive line with lots of redshirt seniors. Mm-hmm. And I think that's like Brian said, it's going to be very hard for them to run. Here's the other thing about their running game. Oklahoma's running backs coach is the dumbest piece of rocks I think we've come across as far as he does not know who his good players are. So this guy, you're going to remember these names from recruiting. Gavin Sawchuk, they couldn't get anything out of that guy. He goes to FSU. Taylor Tatum, he was a great prospect. He doesn't know where he's going most of the time, and he had some fumble issues last year too, but they couldn't give him a good read, and they just put too much on him. He's injured, so it's not even going to help. They have a freshman this year who's pretty good, Troy Blaylock, who's injured. You're not going to see him. And they went out this spring, and they got Jaden Ott from Cal, who doesn't do anything for me either. He's just a guy who gets like the yards that blocking gets him, and then he can break it big. They're still playing Javante Barnes, who has come back from injuries, and but he's not he's just a guy. And they've got this guy Xavier Robinson, who's a total Mullings, right? He's 234 pounds. He's got great feet. He's got great vision. He's the best receiver out of the backfield. Just a great athlete, and they don't play him. I don't get it. And like I talked to some Oklahoma blogs after I noticed this in the scouting, and I was just like, how come I'm not playing this guy? And they're like, we don't know. Like, why are you recruiting over this guy? We don't know, right? It was like when Haskins had obviously passed Charbonnet and all those guys, and you're just like, play your best player, play your guy. And this has apparently been a problem for them for a long time. The running backs coach is just kind of a recruiter and just wants to go out and recruit the next guy to fix his problems. And he's got a great player that they're not going to use. Who could probably fix some things against Michigan, right? We don't have Graham and Grant who are just going to absolutely demolish everything. So if you run inside zone against Michigan's line, you might get 2 or 3 yards, even if the blocking isn't there, just because you're going to fall forward and get those yards if you got a guy like Xavier Robinson. If they're going to do it with Javante Barnes, their tight ends aren't that good either. Jared Kanick is more of a fullback. They just converted him. He's fast, very fast. But sorry, not fullback, sorry, H-back. He's, a move tight end. So they're going to use him as a wide receiver. He's going to be number 12. You're going to see him moving around, and they might if Michigan tries to go 5-2 against them, he's going to blow a guy off the line. I would not do that. I would just, use Mason Curtis as your nickel and just kind of roll with a nickel the whole game against these guys, because none of their other tight ends are going to do anything. Will Huggins is terrible. Carson Kent's terrible. None of those guys can block. So they don't really have an option to, personnel their way into a running game like Michigan normally does. And they don't have I think Mateer's going to have to do it himself.
Yeah, only 3.2 yards a carry last week, Craig.
Yeah, I agree with what's been said. I think the Oklahoma's going to have a difficult time running the ball, which means a lot's going to be on Mateer. Mateer is very good, but he doesn't have a great history against high quality defenses. I mean, he has a good history against sort of mid-level or second tier defenses, but he doesn't have a great history in the few games he's played against top level defenses. So whether he's going to be able to do that or not, I don't know. My concern is more on I don't see Oklahoma moving the ball a lot. I hope that's right, but I don't I don't know what Michigan's going to be able to do. I remain very, very concerned about the offensive line, especially against this particular defensive front, and whether Michigan's going to be able to navigate that and negotiate that reasonably. Time will tell. I don't know. I can't predict that.
Yeah, I want to get this in. Ben Arbuckle is their offensive coordinator. They brought over from Washington State with Mateer, and he's the guy who can RPO anything. That was his whole offense.
Mm-hmm.
His deal is he can look at your defense, figure out who is over leveraged, and RPO that guy to death. And that's what they were. That's what the whole thing that Wazoo was. The only thing they would do is if you went man on them, they had this NFL receiver. I'm blanking on his name right now, but they had this NFL receiver. And anytime Mateer saw him against a Mountain West cornerback, he was like, "Let's go," and they would just chuck it up to him, and he beat the guy. So that's their offense. Now I'm fascinated to see how this is going to work against Michigan's defense, because what does Michigan's defense do? They hide all their intentions, right? Everybody, it's the amoeba. You never know who's going to be doing what. So, this is a real test for Arbuckle and whether this is going to work out on this level for him, because he's used to having pretty simple to read defenses. And I think that's the right thing to do, because Texas is pretty simple. They're straightforward, right? Like if you're Oklahoma, that's the guy you want at your offensive coordinator. Michigan's going to be a very strange test for him because they hide all the information that he's trying to give Mateer, and they don't make it the same down to down. So maybe the question is, can he look at our defense and find the system, find the flaws, and exploit that to keep the things moving? Or is he just going to give his quarterback bad reads and Mateer is going to be uncomfortable, and you got true freshmen out there, and like this could go sideways in a lot of directions for Oklahoma's offense.
Yeah, I think for Michigan, the X factor is going to be Bryce running the football. I get the questions about how or if they're going to be able to move it against their defensive line. Can they protect? But whether it's slowing down the rush or taking care of the extra man in the box, plus one running, zone reading, using him 5, 6, 7 times in this game, running the football, I think is going to be and then establishing him as a threat, I think is going to be the X factor in this game, in the run game, and with slowing down that rush, I think is going to be a big, big key. So
a couple of things. Kyle Williams is the Washington State guy, went in the 3rd round last year. Mateer played 2 Power 4 opponents last year, Texas Tech and Washington. 50% completion rate and about 6.7 yards an attempt there. 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. So when he wasn't playing Mountain West competition, it got a little rough for him, and that was with a very good receiver. Now I'm sure Oklahoma has a couple of guys who are on Williams's level. They recruit very well.
No, not really.
I guess not.
Yeah, they got Deion Burks.
And but one thing that we're not really talking about Mateer is that he is a runner. He's a guy who,
he's slippery.
Yeah, he will pick up a lot of yards. He had 700 rushing yards a year ago. So for me, this is a Jalen Milroe game. You're playing Jalen Milroe again. You have a shaky offensive line. You have a guy who's prone to bad decisions, who throws off platform a lot, so he's good at it, but is still a little bit iffy when he gets pressure. and he's going to run the ball and he's going to get you a couple of times. But to me, it's just, pin your ears back and make this guy make bad decisions.
Like to have Jason Barham for that.
All right, folks, that'll do it for us. Thanks for listening. We'll see you tomorrow here on the Michigan Insider on the Big 1050 WTKA online at the